Da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum. What does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review. Today I'm very excited to be checking out Villains and Vigilantes, the card game from GameSloop. This is for 2 to 4 players, ages 12 plus, so take you about 60 minutes to play. And in Villains and Vigilantes, you are going to be taking control of either a team of superheroes or a team of supervillains, going all around the city and trying to earn mojo, aka victory points, by completing various different missions. Of course, along the way, you're going to be getting into epic super battles and recruiting different characters and doing all sorts of cool plot points and missions. It's got some really interesting mechanisms, and it plays very differently depending on the player count. But is it a good game? Let's open it up. I'll tell you about it. Alright then, so we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Villains and Vigilantes, the card game. So, first and foremost, we have a handy-dandy rule booklet. It is 15 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples, and it is very thorough. It's still not the most well-done rule booklet. It's not a bad rule booklet, but it could be better. There's just some weird, wonky things here and there, and it takes a while to get through. It's not the most readable rule booklet, but we'll have you up and running once you get through it, which is always a good thing. So in Villains and Vigilantes, you are going to be taking control of either superheroes and supervillains, and you're going to be moving them all around the board, which is out here, which is going to have 16 different locations, and you're going to be trying to defeat your opponent by completing various different missions. These missions will earn you what is called mojo. Mojo is victory points. So you're going to have missions in front of you. You're going to be trying to complete those various different missions with your superheroes, and you will start the game with either 1, 2, or 3 superheroes. But along the way, you are going to get into battles. There will be plot points and gas leaks and explosions and lots of fightings and all sorts of superhero-y stuff. So before we get started, I do want to mention that there's a lot going on in this game. It's not a complex game, but it does have a steep learning curve. I mean, just there's tons of tokens and pieces and all sorts of different things. So I'm going to do my best to give you the basics of how the game works. So when you first start the game, each player is going to get their own deck. Now, this is where the game really gets its legs, because you can also construct your own deck, but they also come with 4 pre-constructed decks. In addition, you have extra cards that you can construct your own deck with. So a deck's going to come with a couple different kinds of cards. The first ones are going to be either your main superheroes or your main supervillains, and they will look something like this. They have a certain amount of health, a certain amount of power or energy that they can spend, a couple different kinds of types, and these are the kind of types they can spend their energy on. But I'll explain a little bit more of that later. You also notice there's some flavor text, and what's really nice is each character is going to have their own corresponding pawn, which is going to go on the board and actually move around the board to really add to the theme of the game. When you start the game, you're either going to start with 1, 2, or 3 heroes or villains. And what's interesting is how many heroes or villains you have is going to impact your hand size, because having cards in your hands is always a good thing, but having more superheroes or supervillains means you're going to have less cards in your hand. I believe it's you start with 8 cards, then each hero or villain you add, you minus 1, and you can only have up to 3. So there's going to be those main kinds of cards. Next, you're going to be able to have minor characters that will look like this, and you have to pay some of your energy to bring this out. So for instance, this guy is going to cost you 3 energy to bring out, and one of your villains, that since we're playing with villains right here, will be able to do that. So both these guys could potentially bring them out, because bloop, bloop, they have 4. But the thing is, you have to look at what kind of energy it is. So he's going to cost 3 of that kind of energy in order to bring him out. So this guy could not bring him out. However, this guy could bring him out. And when you do bring out a guy, you're going to spend the energy to do it, and they won't come out this turn, but they will come out next turn, and you guessed it, they're going to have their own unique pawn that will actually go out on the board. So you're going to have more than the characters that you started with, but be worried, because these are only minor characters, and as we all know, they're kind of cronies and they can get knocked out. So other cards you're going to have in the game are going to be powers, powers, and more powers. And this is primarily what's in the deck. There'll be different powers that will do all sorts of different things. This one is going to be punching. There's ones that will have you moving and unmasking, doing all sorts of different things. Some will let you heal up because you can take damage. Your heroes can even get knocked out, but luckily they can't be completely eliminated. And there are some cards that will help you potentially get them up and running. Next, you're going to have mission cards, and we talked about those a little bit earlier, but you're going to start with one mission card in front of you, and you'll get to pick which mission you want, so you'll kind of know what your objective is going to be throughout the game. But as you get more mission cards out to the board, you can get more ways to earn points. So for this one, control active characters at 4 different locations at the end of your action phase. So if you do that, you're just going to earn a mojo. So this guy obviously is going to want to spawn lots of different cronies and foot soldiers and little bad guys and just keep them alive. So that would be his main objective early on in the game. And whenever you do that, you're going to gain mojo. As I mentioned, 11 mojo is going to win you the game, and that wins you the game immediately. Last but not least, you're going to have plot cards. The plot cards are an interesting mechanism to the game, because when you play out a plot card, it's going to go in front of you, and then you're going to place a token on a various different locations around the board. So for this one, place at a slum's downtown laboratory or office building location. If a character at this location plays an energy power card, inflict 2 body damage on all characters at the location. So essentially, there is a gas leak somewhere, and if someone uses that certain ability there, explosion, everybody gets damaged, good guys, bad guys, everybody's going to get damaged. So they just add a little bit to the theme of the game. Now all these cards are going to be shuffled up and mixed up into what is called your deck. Now as I mentioned, you can pre-construct your deck, or they have constructed decks that you can do there. You're going to shuffle them up, and then you're going to draw up the cards. You're obviously going to start with these 2 guys out there, and you will start with a headquarter somewhere on the board, and that's where your characters are going to start. Now you may notice that there's also power cards down here. This is one of the interesting mechanisms in the game, because these power cards are persistent. You will always have the option to pick up all these power cards down here. And these power cards are going to do wildly different things. So for instance, this one, it's going to cost you 2 action. Anybody can use it because it doesn't have any requirements. And this is just going to allow you to move. So that one is very important. Here we go, Voice of Reason. This one, any characters heal 1 mind damage, because there are different kinds of damage you can take. Because as we mentioned right here, this is going to be your mind power, and this is what you're going to spend on cards, and this is going to be your health. So this is mind damage, this would be physical damage, and if someone damages your mind damage, that means you're going to be able to put out less cards, do less attacks, so you don't want your mind to be damaged, but you also don't want your power to be damaged, because you can get KO'd. We'll talk about more of that in a little bit if we have time. But as I mentioned, there are tons and tons of cards down here. These are going to be your power cards. Now when you first start your turn, you're going to do a couple things. The first thing is the ready phase. So you're going to have X amount of cards in your hand. So for instance, right now we would have 6 cards in our hand because we have 2 heroes. And what we would have the option to do is we can pick up any of the, or all of these cards we want. Well, we can pick up to 6 of these cards up and put them in their hand. But as soon as we pick up one of these cards in our hand, we immediately have to discard one of the other cards in our hand. So let's just pretend that these 6 cards were in our hand right now, and nothing is going to allow us to move. Well, we really want to get Mace onto the board. We really want to get this bad guy out onto the board. So you know what? We would go ahead and we would pick up 2 movement cards, and then we would have to discard immediately 2 other cards. So we would discard those 2 cards, and those would go into a discard pile. But unlike other games, you're not just going to shuffle up your discard pile when you run out of cards. I'll talk about more of that in a second. So once you've decided on which of these cards that you would like to have in your hand, you're going to do as many actions as you can as you have mind power. So you might be moving around, you might be trying to get closer to your enemies so you can punch them, you might be trying to get to different locations so you can complete some of your objectives and earn mojo, doing all sorts of different superhero-y things. Along the way, you might get jailed, you might get slashed, you might do lots of different things. As you can see, tons of different tokens, and I don't have time to talk about all those, but they all work with the game, and even though it does appear daunting, it's not as daunting once you know what's going on. So once you've completed all of your actions, you're going to do what's called the wipe phase. Now the swipe phase, I should say. And what's going to happen is you're going to put all the cards into that you played into your discard pile, except for the blue bordered cards. Because as we mentioned, these are going to be persistent cards that are in front of you. You'll put those right back in front of you, and then you will draw up to your maximum hand size. Now, on your next turn, you're once again going to decide which of the cards you would like to pick up, and you'll pick them up, but you will once again have to discard the cards, discard that same amount of cards into your discard pile. Now you're saying eventually all your cards are going to go into the discard pile, and that is true. So on your turn, one of these turns, what you're going to have to do is do what's called the reshuffle phase, which means you're going to skip all your actions. You know, you can't do anything else on that turn, and then you're just going to reshuffle up all your cards, and then you will have a full deck once again. So, Lots of stuff going on here. What you're going to be doing in this game is you're going to be setting up headquarters, moving your characters all around the board, spawning new characters, getting into battles, getting into fights, setting up plot points, trying to gain mojo points, aka victory points, by completing different missions. And the first person to get to 11 points, or in the team game, the first team to get to 11 points, is going to be the winner of Villains and Vigilantes. And that, in a crazy jumbled nutshell, is how the game is played. Oh, great dokery! Villains and Vigilantes, the card game from GameSloot. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the cons side, the game is not going to be for everybody for a couple different reasons. Very restricted player count. It's 2 to 4 players, which is going to be a turn-off to some people. Also, this is the kind of game where you need to be able to invest time into the game. This isn't one of those games that you can pick up, once every month or two and get the most out of this game. This is one where it's really... the more you put into this game, the more you're going to get out. With the deck construction, if you could find somebody and you could play this on a routine basis and start making your own decks with superheroes and supervillains, I could see this being amazing. Like, you could have a lot of fun with this. And there's even an expansion, so you could do that with the cards. But not everybody is going to have the amount of time that is needed to put it into this game. Next, 2, 3, and 4 players plays drastically different, which is going to be a turn-off to some people. Now, for me personally, I do like that. But 2 players, tactical, head-to-head, I think it might be my favorite way to play. You have complete power. 3 players is interesting, and I wonder about the wonkiness of it. Because in 3 players, it's 1 hero versus 2 villains. Now, that sounds like it's super, on the villain side, but it's actually a 3-way battle royale. But the thing is, it tries to balance itself out, because the superhero is going to have some missions that it will be nice that there's extra bad guys on the board that they can beat up and do various different things with. But at the same time, the supervillains, and we didn't have this happen in the 3-player games we played, but they could easily team up on the superhero and just boom, 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 just knock him to just completely just destroy him, because you can keep taking hit points over and over and over and over and over again, which would make it really difficult to heal. And then they could just say, all right, now we'll just face each other to see who can win. So if they teamed up, it could really be a disadvantage to the hero. So I worry about the 3-player version of the game. Now, the 4-player version of the game I liked as well, aside from the fact that it was too long. It really did stretch out. And it's interesting because then it turns into this cooperative game where you're working with a partner trying to defeat the other team. I guess it's not really a cooperative game, but a team versus team game. And you can even, when you unleash minor characters, you can even give them control of the characters and cool stuff like that. And I really did like that, but it was a little bit too long. But that's something that you're going to want to know. Any other cons I have with this game? The theme is definitely superheroes. Superhero. If you don't like superheroes, this one is probably going to be a turn-off to you. Also, the rule booklet could have been better. There's just some weird stuff here and there. Like, there's a part where they misnamed a token and some other various stuff like that. It's by no means a deal-breaker, but it is a lengthier rule booklet for how simple the game is once you know what's going on. Any other cons I have with this game? Not really that I can think about. Moving on to the pros, I did enjoy my time with Villains and Vigilantes, and if I had more time to invest into the game, I think this could be a really great game to get into, and I'll tell you why. First, it's just fun. If you like superheroes, the artwork just is nice, and I love the fact that they actually have the little miniatures, the little tokens, just moving all around the board. The board looks really good. It's got all the different comic book-esque locations. Like, it really drips theme. There's flavor text on all the cards, even though the flavor text is way too tiny. And so I like that. I like how all the mechanisms work. That's another really cool thing about this game. There's some interesting mechanisms in here that I don't think I've seen in other games. The fact that you have all those powers in front of you and you can use those every single turn, but that means you're going to have to replace other cards in your hand and discard them, and you'll eventually have to use your entire turn just to get cards back in your hand. That's a really cool mechanism that I'd like to see in more games, because it really makes you think about which cards you're going to use when you first start playing. Another comment I do want to mention, this is not an easy game to teach. While it is a straightforward and simple game, there's a lot of tokens, and as you saw in the middle part, there's just a lot of stuff going on that you can try and get them the bare bones, but they really need to know everything to be in order to play the game. Any other pros I have with this game? Not really that I can think of. Oh, the box insert. I really like the box insert. It's weird that I mentioned that, but it looks like a really ghetto cheap box insert, but it works perfect for deck construction games like this, because it holds everything in place and you can like start constructing decks here and there and put them all different spots. But that's really not here nor there. So overall, my thoughts on Villains and Vigilantes, the card game, I enjoyed it. I think it's a good game. I can recommend it if you think you can find someone else to play this with on a routine basis. If you're thinking about playing this once every month, I really can't recommend it. But as a game that you want to invest some time into, Villains and Vigilantes is a great game to check out. So there's Villains and Vigilantes, the card game from GameSloop, one that I did enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to click on the subscribe button down below and in the comments below. Let me know, what is your favorite kind of chair? For me personally, I like those shiatsu massage chairs, the ones that you have at like the mall, where like it hurts a little bit when it massages your back, where it's like, it hurts, but oh man, it feels so good. I like a little bit of pain with my whoa, this is a little too awkward conversation. But let me know in the comments below what's your favorite kind of chair. As always, thanks for your time, YouTube.